everyone. Welcome to Agency Reporter's special segment powered by MIQ. For today's discussion, we have with us eminent experts from the industry to help us understand the different nuances of data-driven marketing in today's world. The topic for this session is data-driven marketing and how macro trends influence consumer behavior and can be utilized to take performance for brands to the next level. So as we all know, the digital age has brought about widened reach for brands along with the availability of enormous amounts of data. And of course, in this day and age, marketing needs to be data-driven in order to be effective. However, owing to the dynamic nature of the marketing world and different kinds of trends, only a fraction of these organizations, I believe, are truly at the forefront of these data-driven marketing efforts. So today's episode, we would be focusing on the key trends that have shaped and influenced consumer behavior in recent times, how brands have managed to stay on top of their marketing game, and the importance of big data in ensuring efficient performance. So I'd like to introduce our panel today. Today we have with us Vaibhav Mehrotra, who's the head of marketing at Cashfree. Hello, Vaibhav, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Sakshi. Pleasure to be here.
Next, we have Mr. Prasenjit Basu, who's the head of marketing at Voltas. Welcome, Prasenjit.
Hey, hi, thanks. Thanks for having me on board. Thank you.
We have Kanishk Arya, who's the chief operating officer at SleepyCat. Welcome, Kanishk.
Thanks, Sakshi. Thanks for having me here.
Next, we have Argo Bhattacharya, who's the head of marketing at Neo. Welcome, Argo.
Hi, Sakshi. Happy to be here.
Next, we have Kuldeep Pawar, who's the head of marketing at Spice Money. Welcome, Kuldeep.
Sakshi, thank you for having me here.
And last, we have Siddharth Vakabare, who's the managing director at MIQ. Welcome, Siddharth.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So my first question is meant for Prasenjit and Vaibhav. I'd like to know from both of you, as marketers, imperative to understand macro trends which are driven by different kinds of global forces in order to optimize your long-term marketing strategy, right? So which of these significant macro trends have impacted your marketing strategy in the recent past, especially since the pandemic? So maybe Prasenjit can start and Vaibhav can pitch in.
I think that's a very broad question. I'll take a very small example of how we've been operating. We're in the business of appliances. I work with a company called Voltas Beko, which is a joint venture between Tata Sons and Turkish 500 company, Fortune 500. It's a 50-50 joint venture. So I report into two different board of directors. Okay. And during the pandemic, you suddenly saw everything being closed, and there were new needs that adapted during the pandemic. A category that was never there, something like dishwashers. All of India used to sell around about 100,000 dishwashers, before a category that never developed was there, very much there, very international, very European in nature, suddenly went out of its bursts, and during the first few months, I'm talking of last year until now, you suddenly seen around about almost 1,000% growth in terms of the dishwasher sales in the country. And this was driven primarily through the online and the digital space, where we actually helped in beefing up our presence, not only in terms of demystifying the category, but also trying to understand what is it that why does an Indian customer not want a dishwasher? Can we handle their, their queries? What is it? Does Indian food be taken care with, European dishwashers? Will it help? So we actually broke that myth, and we actually saw a huge change in terms of the mindset of consumers. There were a couple of barriers that came in, and it was a category that actually evolved during the pandemic, and is now on a growth sphere. And it's actually got last year we already showed almost 400% growth in our dishwasher numbers, driven through two particular things. Obviously, work from home, no maids available, no one coming home, to help you. You need to manage things on your own. That was one. The second thing was, does Indian food utensils is it suitable for dishwashers that are more European driven? So that's one myth that we worked on, where we actually started talking to consumer groups, micro groups, women, men together, where we started addressing the issues with respect to how we actually, how Indian food can be worked on can be taken care with our dishwashers. And the third and the largest myth is the fact that, dishwashers always come in a particular size. So when you actually buy a dishwasher, it's as large as a front load washing machine, and putting it into a small kitchen in India is one of the biggest barriers for most consumers, you know. And that's one of the biggest barrier that we found. So that's when we started introducing products which actually are plug and play products, which means that you just buy a dishwasher and fit it into your home without actually changing the overall architecture or design of your of your kitchen. All you need to do is put it on a tabletop, and hence it was called a tabletop dishwasher. So I think we saw a huge change, and this change was actually driven through both strong level of involvement in the digital space, with people actually having a lot of time during the pandemic to be online, and we using the online platform to actually push certain narratives which are more empathetic in nature than being very product driven. So that's my 2 cents on this particular question, you know.
Thank you, Prasenjit. Weber, would you like to pitch, please?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Prasenjit, and really liked his use case of dishwashers. I think all of us can relate to it, being part of the first lockdown, especially. Yeah, I mean, pandemic has definitely accelerated digital adoption. If we look at from a macro trend perspective, I think while I was just reading this report, I think while our population grew like a 1% last year, the social media adoption was sort of 22% higher, right? So I mean, our population across the country is becoming more internet savvy, spending more time on mobile, spending more time on social channels. So as a marketer, that really helps me understand how is the customer profile that I'm going to target is changing or evolving, right? Now, what's happening through this digital, acceleration is that there is the whole ecosystem is just warmed up, right? It's very easy to accept payments. It's very easy to make payments, right? It's very easy to have access to technology, which earlier there was a reservation, or even the availability was also a question, right? And we are seeing that especially the MSME sector is sort of driving that, right? They are driving India's growth story today, right? And what we're also seeing that, right, with the surge of these services being much more easily available, we are seeing that for example, brands like we're seeing the categories like D2C is like rising up, right? I mean, we're seeing. I mean, I did not think like world's fifth largest wearable device is an Indian company called Boat, right? I mean that, and we're seeing that companies like Mamaearth are reaching up to a revenue scale what other companies were taking about 200 years, 20 years to reach. Like a Revlon took like a 20 years to reach to 100 CR, but Mamaearth like did it in 7 to 8 years. So we're seeing that there is a because of ease of doing business, ease of, and the customers are also looking for convenience, and hence the access to customer without going to middlemen has also increased, right? And so that's other macro trend that we have seen. So I mean, as a marketer, it's very important for us to understand these macro trends so that we can devise solutions which can help our end customers grow better, faster, right? So that's what we've been doing.
Right. Thank you, Weber. So my next question is for Siddharth. Siddharth, like, Prasenjit and Weber have talked about the changes in consumer behavior, especially since the pandemic. It's also saying that, it's rendered the rules of traditional marketing rather invalid in today's time, especially the pandemic. So how does data fit into this picture now? And how do you think it can drive different forms of marketing in 2021?
Yeah, so a great question, actually. And I think what Prasenjit and Weber already talked about, there is a digital adoption, and there is, obviously a quicker digital adoption than how the market is growing. So obviously that way, and then digital gives a lot of data as well, right? So from that perspective, there's a lot of data coming in now in the Indian system, which was probably there in the offline, but it was difficult to get. Now it is much easier to get, kind of thing. And just to highlight here, what will happen now, and as we have seen in other markets as well, and it's a very natural course of action which will happen, is that there are macro trends which have always been there, which have affected the consumer and brand interaction, right? And now, because we are able to have these macro trends in the digital format, What we can do now is we can take these macro trends and correlate them with the consumer brand interaction and see which are the macro trends which are having a huge amount of correlation, right? And then apply those correlations and those macro trends in your marketing strategy so that you are in line with the macro trends, and thereby you are also able to gain efficiencies as well. So I will give an example. We have a case study with L'Oreal, where what we did was we were able to understand that the TG of L'Oreal, which is basically female 25 to 44 affluent households interested in cosmetics, interested in L'Oreal products, when they are coming more online, when they are searching on L'Oreal products and on cosmetics products, and when they are also browsing on beauty apps. So we were able to gather all these signals at a cohort level, at that entire cohort level. And what we were able to do was we were able to then, when we basically created an index. So when that index was up, we increased the intensity of the campaign because it was the index was synced with the with our campaign in an automated way, and there was an algorithm where it was changing the bidding as the Sensex was going up and down. And this results in at a minimum 40-50% increase in efficiencies, be it engagement rates, be it conversions. And we have seen this has increased the efficiencies by 2x and 3x as well. So there are also other examples in other markets. For example, you can also correlate, if you are suppose an auto brand, what you can do is you can correlate your dealership sales data with inventory and with the demand, right? And then accordingly you can do the campaign to drive footfalls in different geographies and different timelines, basis the correlation between how the sales is panning out, how the inventory is there, and how the demand is demand predictability you are able to see. So from that perspective, you can bring in a lot of sophistication to your marketing campaigns and really get very, very strong bang for the buck.
Great. Thank you, Sudha. That was quite insightful. The case study was quite interesting, I would say. Next question. My next question is for Kanishk. So Kanishk, like we just discussed, that data-driven marketing is constantly evolving, it's expanding. So as a brand, what are the different ways that you leverage your customer data in order to engage with your audience effectively?
Sure. So I think, at least in our case, data-driven marketing is the only kind of marketing that exists now. I think it has changed a lot over the last 10 years. There was a time when it was okay for marketing to be subjective, for people to just go with gut. But now we have a lot of data, a lot of feedback in the form of real data, and it's all real time for us to take decisions. So for example, so at Sleepycat, we are into sleep solutions, with mattress being a primary product. Now, mattress is bought once in 5 to 10 years. So we always have a very limited window to get data and take action on the data. So the way we divide data is the 3 broad segments that we divide data into. Firstly, is to who to reach out to. I don't want to tell the whole world to come and buy a mattress. Doesn't matter how convincing I am, it's not going to make an impact if they're not in market, right? So the first data set is consumer behavior on the internet, which is very, very useful for us to reach out to the right set of people. Second data set that comes for us is when somebody comes to our website or our social media. This data that we have on the basis of actions that they take. When somebody comes to our website, we observe dozens of events: which product they check out, how much do they scroll on a page, how much time they spend, are they in the buying journey or not, and we use all of it to take decisions across our website, across advertising. For example, even a small thing like our email marketing program. We constantly experiment, and for example, we found out that if we tell somebody, oh, these are our bestsellers, which like almost everybody says, doesn't work as effectively. But when we say, this is what a founder likes, or if a founder email goes and says, this is what my recommendation is, that shows us clear jump in terms of conversion. So we use all the data to sort of put it back. Even, for example, learning from our social media. Social media is a place where you get instant approvals in terms of what is connecting with customers or not. So the moment we see that theme is connecting with customers on social media, we use the same theme and take it across platforms. So all our systems need to sort of talk to each other. And the last bit, the last segment of data that we sort of look at is the actual customer data who purchase from us, right? We have a robust system of reaching out to our own customers for NPS surveys, for feedback, which then again goes back to marketing, to product, to service. For example, our primary product is an 8-inch mattress called Plus mattress. And we used to always advertise it as the most sort of soft and comfy bed to sleep on. But when we sort of got the customer survey, what we realized that they were actually educated enough to know what sort of foam they're going for, and they were buying us because we had a much more premium gel foam on top. Now, while we used to mention it, we never thought that customers are so particular about that versus the so-called marketing benefit of a comfy bed, right? And that data helped us sort of reimagine our communication, reimagine the way we showcase our products. So, as a bottom line, I think to summarize, there's a lot of data, and it's important that the learning from one system talks to another. And this is not just for marketing, but for the entire org to do better. I think that's what's important for data-driven marketing.
Right. And also, Kanishk, you mentioned that you have to ensure consistency and you have to follow the theme that you find on one platform. So obviously, it's becoming very important for brands to provide an exceptional omni-channel experience for their customers. So how do you ensure that omni-channel experience to retain your customers?
Sure. So see, the omni-channel experience comes in sort of two parts. One is engaging with customers, and second, also being available to do business, right? What we believe is that customers are omni-channel and brands exist for customers. So if wherever the customers are, we have to mirror it. Now, you have to mirror it both in terms of being available and doing the job expected on that particular channel. So we are an online brand, and that makes sense for us. We're a startup. It's easy to scale. It's sort of not as investment oriented as an offline business. Now, even when you look at online business, firstly, from being available to do business, we are not just present on our website, which is our primary source of business. We are available wherever the customers are. So we are there on Amazon, we're there on Flipkart, we're there on Cred, and there's a long list, right? Because if the customer wants us to do business on a particular channel, first we are available on that particular channel because it's customer's decision where they want to do business, right? And we don't want to dictate that. It also actually helps us because it improves our availability. But to be consistent, we have a common team which looks at the way a product is positioned on different channels, irrespective of their guidelines. Similarly, for marketing, every channel has their own language, I would say. For example, the way we behave on a YouTube, the way we communicate on an Instagram or a Twitter is all different, but it's all rooted in the same insights. In a core belief, for example, a core belief is that, and I think especially true for India, that we are overworked and we take pride in burning out. It's a badge value to say since college that, I hardly slept before the exam, it's okay. And it's like almost you're proud of it, right? Versus being proud of saying, you know what, I take care of myself. So that we keep that value constant and say this is the core, but we talk in the fashion or we present ourselves in a fashion which is true to that particular channel, because that's what customers expect. They don't expect you to talk like you speak on Instagram, on Twitter. It will just throw them off. It just looks like it's like you talk differently in a party and when you're at work. And that's just, I think the same logic applies even in omnichannel.
Great. Thank you so much, Kanish. That was really insightful. So my next question is for Siddharth and Vaibhav. Siddharth, like just Kanish just mentioned that, you can't just use the same kind of language on every platform. And even though there's so much buzz around omnichannel marketing, the same kind of content on every channel does not really improve your performance. So what role does data play in, helping you decide which channels or platforms would yield the best results for your campaigns?
So I think what we have seen is that it's not that it's done in every campaign we do for our clients and with our agency partners, but very often what we try to do is we try to first understand for the brand what is the consumer profile, and within that consumer, obviously, and there might not be one consumer, there might be different cohorts of consumers, and that can be done in various ways. And definitely this is something which we always love to do because we have extensive data of Indian consumers, 700 million consumers data and 500 plus signals we have collected in India. So we have huge amounts of third-party data, and by which what we can do is we can really profile different consumer cohorts in a very, very rich manner. And then that also helps us to understand that who are these consumers and what media they are on, what channels do they prefer. And then from there, basically the planning process helps us to understand these are the dominant channels which should be used for a particular brand. To give a simple example, so we have a case study with GoDaddy where what we did was GoDaddy wanted to target SME audiences, and they had done a campaign, a TV campaign. Dhoni is their brand ambassador in March 2021, and they wanted to reach out to other cohorts who probably might not have seen their TV ad or might have seen their TV ad but not enough times, because as you have seen, a lot of consumers in these 2 years have shifted from traditional TV viewing to digital channels of entertainment. So what we did was we profiled the SME audiences who they want to acquire as their consumers, and we matched it with the consumers who basically have either cut the cord or who are light TV viewers, right? And we did the matching. We were able to figure out, okay, this is the cohort which is basically SME audience, as well as these consumers have not watched the GoDaddy ad, or they have watched it less number of times than what GoDaddy ideal frequency would be for the campaign. And then we targeted them for those for light TV viewers. Obviously, we augmented the frequency. For heavy TV, meaning sorry, for cord cutters, we basically completely reached out to them on digital. And what we also did was we also did the planning in terms of which are the OTTs basis the consumer profile, which are the best suited for this particular digital campaign. So we were not only able to figure out the cohorts, but we are also able to figure out that these are the top three OTTs where we should be doing the campaign and we should be focusing on, because these audiences are predominantly on these OTTs.
Right.
So basically, long story short, it comes from fundamentally audience profile, and that's where it should be.
Right. Weber, please, would you like to pitch?
No. So I completely agree with Siddharth. I think he did give a fairly relatable example. I mean, we do spend a lot of time understanding where our customer is, both from his journey perspective and also from where he is on the purchase journey perspective, right? I mean, what I would want my search to do would be very different than what my YouTube would do, right? So accordingly, each channel, each platform will have their own objectives, and depending upon where the customer is in his journey. So that's what we do as well. I mean, we combine third-party data and first-party data and try to find cohorts and build up intelligences so that we can identify what are the right campaigns at the right places. So that's what we've been doing. And I mean, there are some experiments that work very well. There are some who don't, but there is always a learning. And that's what I think data-driven marketing allows you, right? I mean, if you spend X money in a particular campaign, you can always understand whether you want to scale up or scale down or try something else, right? So that's what we've been doing. And yeah, I mean, I think both content and performance both operate from understanding the journey better and the attributes of your customer better. So yeah, I mean, completely aligned with what Siddharth said.
Right. Thank you, Weber. So my next question is concerning the fintech industry at large, and I'd like to ask this to Kuldeep and Argo. That fintech is obviously one of those industries that uses big data extensively because of the complexity of the services that are being offered. So what are the key insights that you are able to derive from marketing tools that help in the overall decision-making process? Kuldeep, maybe you can start, and Argo can continue.
Yeah. So let me first tell you about what Spice Money is all about, so that it will be easier for you guys to relate to what I talk. We are a rural fintech. We are one of the leading rural fintechs in the country. And when we say rural fintech, what we primarily do is we create branch banking sort of network in rural India, where a rural citizen can withdraw money through a APS platform. A rural citizen can transfer money. A rural citizen can deposit money. A rural citizen can book tickets on IRCTC. A rural citizen can book a airline ticket, bus ticket, and apart from that, we've also started doing e-commerce assisted services from Amazon, Flipkart on our platform. So altogether, more than 10, 12 products what we currently offer. So it's a not just a branch banking sort of solution, but it is beyond branch banking and digital services what we offer through agent network in rural India. Primarily semi-urban and rural is where we are present in. Our agent network is 95% of India's PIN code is what our presence is currently. And we have 7.5 lakh agents across the country who work with us on an app and a web platform. So there are two platforms currently what we offer, and it's named under Spice Money. And there is travel portal. What we've recently launched is Travel Union. So these are two business verticals what we operate with. Spice Money is primarily the rural fintech, and the Travel Union is a recent new arm what we've launched in the travel tech sort of platform. So in our scenario, it's only digital what works for us, right? As in we're reaching out to somebody who's in rural India, and thanks to the connectivity what digital India has to offer today, where we've been able to not just help banking in pockets where branch banking can't be possible. While all of us have heard that there are over 400 Jandhan accounts which have been created in the country today, we don't have ATM networks across the country to access basic banking facilities. So that is what we solve for. We have micro ATM network, which allows any card holder to withdraw money, and we have a Aadhaar-led network, which allows any Jandhan account holder to withdraw money using a thumb on the Kirana store or a stationery outlets. That's our profile of our agent. We call them Adhikari, and they're roughly 7.5 lakh, which I mentioned earlier. And they could primarily be a Kirana store or a stationery store or a individual internet cafe as well in rural pockets of the country. Coming to the data side of it, as I said, data is primarily the only way we know our customers very well. In our journey, while we can't really have a very elaborate onboarding process for an agent, because that's where typically an agent would fall out, right? If you have a very elaborate profiling journey. So you have a very minimalistic digital onboarding journey also. It's a paperless digital onboard journey, what we started off during lockdown. And prior to lockdown, we were close to two odd lakh agents, and now we've grown to 7.5 lakh agents in the lockdown period through a digital onboarding journey, because the turnaround for Adhikari to get onboarded has reduced a lot when we started off the digital onboarding journey. So that's the comfort on the onboarding side. When it comes to dependency for a fintech like us, there are multiple transactions what we typically look in day out, be it the cash withdrawals across the country. Different regions have different flavors to look at. You must have seen a lot of DBT schemes which get deployed by the central government. Basis that we also track a lot of transaction, and we keep our adhikaris posted in terms of what sort of money is expected in their respective regions. So keeping them informed through a notification journey, keeping them informed through email marketing, OBD calls is very important. APS is one of our prime business where it's very important for us to keep our network well versed with the money which is getting deployed by the central government or the state government as well. And from 1500 crores sort of transaction during lockdown, initially during lockdown, and now we do close to 6,000 crores of transaction on this network. So this is purely driven with intelligence in terms of data insights on what money is coming in from which network, and what sort of customers would be expected at our merchant level. That sort of detailing is what we keep analyzing on daily basis, on constant basis, and keep the entire network informed. So this is one portion of it. While big data, I was listening to Prasanjeet and Kanishk as well. When you have a very tangible product, right, like a mattress or a AC or a dishwasher, uh, vis-a-vis the product like us, where we're sitting on more than 12 products which are dependent on banking network, a lot of patterns in terms of the journey of, and we're an app on the phone, and we're a web portal sort of journey. We usually track a journey of a login to how much time spent on one particular product, and where is that particular fallout which happens on a particular product, where a customer typically drops off, right? So communication at every level in terms of education, especially when I'm dealing with a rural digital literate person, is very essential for us. So that's the level of data mining what we do. And in fact, a lot of our products are also innovated basis the requirement what we see in the journey of the transaction at the agent level. So Argo would probably have more to add to this, Argo, because your the difference between my product and Argo is catering to urban sort of environment. I'm catering to a rural sort of environment.
Yeah, thanks, Kuldeep. So basically, Kuldeep has maybe the end consumer differs between the urban and rural segment, but yes, portfolio management or a customer portfolio management data becomes an inevitable part of enriching customer experience. So how I look at it is I will take a step back, right? Because I will say, what is data, right? So data is from where the fintech industry in itself has germinated, right? So fintechs exist to solve a problem or maybe exploit an underserved segment or gaps in the market, right? So how were these identified? These were identified with data. So data does that way not only becomes an opportunity, but effectively a leverage that fintechs have, right? Which gives them the ability to be agile, right? So use of data in predictive ways, maybe use of data in suggestive ways, as Kuldeep said when designing CX, right? Or maybe using the data in deterministic insights, right? When we are doing remarketing or when we are trying to retain customers, right? Are being utilized at Neo, right, in real time basis, right, on both sides of marketing. What I mean by both sides of marketing is both on the acquisition side of marketing and the retention side of marketing, right? So at Neo, for acquisition side of marketing, our panelists have already mentioned about third-party data layering or utilizing intent, right, or market intent, whatever it is there. So basically, we are using these existing insights on consumer behavior or existing consumer behavior. So that is first-party behavior, and then we are optimizing our campaigns to bring in, say, more people of who we want, right? At the end of the day, every customer is welcome, but there is of course a choice of customers or a particular cohort of customers that we want. So first party data, third party data layering, right? And using this in a deterministic way is helping us optimize on the acquisition side. Then you look at the retention side, right? So analytics are being used for communicating features, right? So once you have acquired a customer for a app like Neo or a banking product like a Neo, right? Then the whole idea is acquiring is only 10, 20, 30% of the game. The whole idea is to be able to retain that customer. Now, as a fintech, you have to bring in features which are adding value to maybe the life cycle of a customer. But then here we are using data for communicating feature to a particular consumer set, right? So we might have 10, 15, 20 features within a segment, right? It might be from a zero commission to a 7% on your on the money you're getting, to maybe some upcoming features regarding maybe auto investments or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, every feature does not make sense to everybody. So here we are using data on credit score, data on previous usage, data on how a consumer is predicted to behavior. These things to basically remarket a particular product in a way or to a customer who is more likely to consume that feature than the other. So that is what we are using. But there's one bottom line to all this. So what we believe firmly at Neo is we market with data. We do not market to data, right? So data as a segment or whatever the data insights we have, we are using it as a tool to market with it. Whenever we start marketing to data rather than marketing it to the end user, which is still a human being, right? That is where I think some amount of friction comes in between when people are onboarded to a particular product and the actual experience they have with the product. Yeah.
Thank you, Argo. So just sticking to fintech for just a moment more. Argo and Kuldeep, I'd like to know from both of you that your audiences are very different. One is rural based, the other one is urban based, and the fintech sector is definitely booming nowadays. And the use of data and marketing is able to give fintech businesses the boost that they need. So how do you utilize these data insights and real-time insights to just strike a chord with the right kind of people, the right audiences at the right time, and just stand out in the market?
Right. So in terms of the usage of data in our industry overall as fintech, as in keeping rural and urban aside as well, when it comes to security assessment or ensuring that the risk assessment for a portfolio like fintech is looked at, data becomes a key insight for us, looking at the transactions across data. These are real-time data which flows in for a customer like us, wherever transactions are happening, we are able to monitor transactions. A lot of fraudulent cases also happen in fintech environment, which most of us are aware of, right? And one is better risk assessment, which I mentioned, better customer orientation, and in terms of acquisition as well. If you know a particular cohort in a particular region is engaging very well with you, it's easier for us to engage on that particular cohort and scale our marketing campaigns and get more people onboarded on our network. Because this is we are in a B2B, B2C sort of environment. We are dealing with agents, which is further dealing with a customer. So we are looking for somebody who's looking for a self-reliant sort of model, looking for a business opportunity, and finding a cohort like this is very difficult in rural pockets where you don't have clear indications of a pattern which Kanish mentioned earlier, right? There are some behavior patterns which you see in your rural customers. You typically don't find these patterns very differentiating across the regions. So it's important for us to very fine tune the cohort what we've engaged on, and basis that engage on a similar cohort using AI tools and reach out to maximum number of agents we can onboard. While we also have a distribution model in place where we have distributors and feet on ground, there are pockets where we've not been able to reach out to add a lot of agents or adhikaris in the country. So that's where digital insights us in terms of hijacking those markets and onboard a lot of agents and address a lot of banking issues what are faced at the consumer level.
Argo, would you like to put in?
Yeah. So here, so I will again break it back to on the acquisition side. On the acquisition side, using data is quite easier, right? Because we have fixed goals or fixed KPIs already addressed, right? So at the end of the day, when we are using data, right, or when we are using insights from data, there are only two outcomes that we are looking at, right? So on a holistic level, the first outcome is, can we get a better quality / more number of customers, right? So, so to say, we are currently Neo is onboarding around one customer every 30 seconds. So the volume even in a digital banking scheme is quite large. So there is always some amount of gatekeeping that data helps us do in terms of quality of the customers that are coming in. So that is on the acquisition side. And the second part, data on the acquisition side helps in creating financial efficiencies, right? At the end of the day, fintechs or any banking product will always work on very thin, margins, right? So here, the money we spend to acquire a customer, the money we spend to retain a customer is very, very important. So a real-time data input on what is the money going in and what kind of customer is coming in and what is the LTV or the lifetime value of the customer that I can extract out of the customer becomes very, very important, not only to ensure sustainability of the current marketing campaign we are doing, but sustainability of the business as a whole, right? That's outward looking. But when we are looking inwards towards customers we are already acquired, so first party data. Here what happens, the way data plays out is it actually helps us do expectation setting, right? Depending on the data we have of a customer, right? So at the end that will help us set an expectation in revenue in terms of how a customer will behave, right? All customers will not behave similarly. So having a uniform expectations in terms of when you're remarketing to them, when you're trying to retain them in terms of revenue, in terms of how they will behave, is we think is of for days bygone. Currently, data is being used to segment customers into different segments or different cohorts, right? And then have an expectation setting in terms of behavior, expectation setting in terms of revenue from that particular cohort. And that will also ensure the amount of monies, the amount of effort, and the amount of the type of communication that that particular data set or that particular cohort of customers are being served with. So on the outward looking, it is all about efficiencies. On the inwards looking side, it is about expectation setting within our whole customer set. Okay, what is the amount of revenue? What is the amount of activation? What is the amount of business that different customer sets will be able to provide us with? And then look at the path of least resistance to get revenue maximization. So that is what it's all about.
Thank you,
Hey,
Arun.
hey, hi. I just wanted to make a point since we are on fintech. So, while we operate with more enterprises and MSME merchants, Cashfree does offer payment solutions and new banking infrastructure to the upcoming new banks. We also look at data from a very interesting perspective. What we want to understand is how can we give better experiences to our end customers. That's the larger goal, right? So while we look at data from an acquisition perspective, but once the customer is transacting with us, we do look at what kind of solutions we can give so that customers can grow better faster, right? So those can be on two aspects. One could be on how can we give them like a better working capital or a settlement that is instant, right? And so that there is more money in the kitty of a merchant to sort of dispose, right? The other is how can we simplify complex payment flows, right? If you look at how payouts were done a couple of years back versus how companies like Cashfree have simplified complex payment solutions, that's driving efficiencies to businesses like uh, that's one. And the other is how can we look at solutions like instant settlement, which give like better working capital. So those are the other things that we look at from a data perspective. We also look at we also try to develop intelligence as to how can we predict, right, what are the challenges that our merchant might be facing. So if there is a merchant we see basis our modeling that there can be a churn, then so we predict that and help in advance and stuff like that. So those are things that we are doing from a data perspective. From an acquisition perspective, I think Argo has already mentioned that we look at how do we get the right kind of audience and how do we make seamless onboarding for them. So yeah, those are the things that we would also do.
Right. Thank you so much, Weber. So my next question is meant for Prasenjit and Kanish. Obviously, these are very two different brands that both the marketers handle. But I'd like to know that personalized marketing nowadays is so important, and it's also helping brands in connecting with the right audience with meaningful messages. So, as a brand, how do you incorporate personalization in your data-driven marketing efforts? Prasenjit, maybe you can go
Yeah,
first.
hi. Kritika, one is I think, right now I'm having a little disturbance with the network. Am I the only one or everyone's getting a little bit of a disturbance? But, as long as I can be heard, I'm good to go ahead.
Yeah. I think I'm able to hear you quite properly.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Yeah, personalized marketing serves as a key catalyst to improve the consumer experience for us. There are three key ways in which personalization is incorporated into our marketing efforts, which I would like to highlight. One is what we do is reach the right customer at the right time across the right touch points. I'm talking purely about a consumer durable product driven marketing, how we look at customization in terms of data with respect to each individual customer. The second is dynamically optimizing creatives depending on the consumer behavior and the need analysis. This is the second thing that we look at. And lastly, what we do is create a more robust and a diverse content library to reach a variety of customers. These are the three places that we look in terms of personalization, in terms of customer. Here we get multiple customers with multiple needs. However, our products are very generic in nature in certain ways. Also, what does an AC do? It needs to cool. What does a refrigerator do? It needs to keep your food fresh. How do we personalize them? Going forward, what we generally do is we look at customization in terms of accessories that could be added into them, in terms of service AMCs. So there are multiple ways that we look at it, and these are the three key pillars that we look into in terms of customization.
Right. Thank you, Prasenjit. Kanish, would you like to add something to that?
Sure. So, we have a sort of similar structure, so I'll go deep into. I think personalization is an outcome of data-driven marketing. It's an outcome of data's existence, right? Earlier, you wouldn't know how customers' needs are different from each other at that granular level. So you would go out with a message or an outreach program, which is much more, let's say, carpet bombing, right? Now, the more data we have and the more data we have in real time, those decision making can be improved. So finally, what we need is we need to know who the customer is, what they're looking for, at what time. and the last is the channel. The moment we have all that information, then we can be almost the ideal state of talking directly to the customer versus talking to a cohort or a larger audience, right? So there are 4 steps that we follow, right? First is the source of the customer. Where are they coming from? That is first level of input for us to know whether they're interested in a mattress, are they looking to compare something, and accordingly our website journey starts. For example, if somebody looking for mattress, so we use that data to get them into a journey where we ask them for more data about what is the problem they're trying to solve, which is like a mattress quiz that we do. So that's the second level of the journey on the website itself changes basis personalization, basis the data that we have. Uh, the third step is basis the initial input and their behavior on the website. The third part about either remarketing or email campaigns or push campaigns, everything then gets customized to what we believe or have understood the customer need is. So if you come here looking because if you have a neck pain because of your pillow, I would try not to talk to you about a mattress. I will talk to you about how a pillow impacts sort of a sleep posture, right? So that becomes our third level of marketing. And once we are able to do business with a customer, then the fourth level is for us to understand what are the products they have taken interest in and what else will be suitable for them. For example, we know when we launch a blanket, we'll first go to the northern market and we'll go to the customers who are purchasing from there because we know it's a more immediate need for them versus coming to a Bombay, which is a one season market, right? Or we know if somebody has bought a mattress right now, we'll immediately go back to them, telling them this is what they bought and what will go well with that purchase in terms of other sleep accessories that they need for a great night's sleep, right? So it's all data, but I think it's an endless journey. Even for a brand like Amazon, it's an endless journey because you need more and more data and you want to personalize more and more, but there's no end to it. But it is great for customers as well because they're not receiving communication or engaging or forced to engage with content which is not made for them.
Right. Thank you, Kanish. So since we're talking about personalization, it's obviously being demanded more and more by customers as well. But customers are also demanding assurance of the security of their data, right? So Siddharth, I'd like to know from you that how can brands efficiently target consumers, especially now with the inevitable demise of the third-party cookie, while assuring the security of data?
Yeah, so I think that's I would say very important question because privacy is an important topic, right? So I think first of all it's very important to look at like GDPR and other other frameworks which help you to decide that how good this data is from a privacy perspective, how good this data is being managed from a consumer privacy perspective. That is very critical, right? The companies which brands should be working with and or in-house is basically those who have their own chief privacy officers as well, who are basically overseeing the governance of the data and doing it in the right way. And there is a person responsible who is really looking after it full time. Thirdly, I would say it's very also important to look at technologies like clean data rooms, which many of these major technology providers are providing, where what you can do is you can have your data, first party data, populated there. And then, like for example, Google has Ads Data Hub where you can populate your first party data. You can also look at the third party data enrichment there. And basically Google is also saying that I will not take any data from this clean data room. I will not take any clients data or brands data from this clean data room. This data is for the brand to enrich their own data, get the insights, get the activations done, and it is all privately held, and there is no possibility. Meaning the technology obviously assures a certain level of privacy and non-interference or non-hacking of that data, basically. So all those measures are very important and has to be taken. And as Ago rightly said, this is or Kanishk also said there are many aspects to it, and this is an endless journey. So from that perspective, you have to be probably ahead of the curve, or you have to be at least at par with the curve in these matters, because things will keep changing, things will keep evolving, and you will have to keep taking steps to at least be at par of the curve. Being ahead of the curve obviously is recommended, but that can be expensive as well.
Right. And so that I'd also like to just ask you one more question related to this, that, with obviously more and more tools coming up and tools leveraging AI, this one-on-one concept and personalization has gone to new heights, right? So do you expect data-driven marketing to become the norm across all industries and sectors?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I would say the added layer of complexity will be that there will be, immediately in the horizon, connected TV growing. There is digital out of home, which will grow now. I'm sure that it will grow in 2022, even though 2020 and 2021, people have not gone out too much, but I'm sure things will become more new normal and people will go out, and digital out of home will also grow in nature. Then there will be 5G coming in. All kinds of devices will be connected to internet as well. So I think possible AR VR is also growing very fast. So possibilities are endless. So there is growing layer of complexity also around it, and that's also good because the cookie led marketing will become a very small portion of the overall marketing mix, and there are so many other devices and other form factors which will come into picture as well. And all these devices obviously will enable to have data from various touch points of consumer, which will definitely add to the complexity, but probably to an extent it will also add to the richness of the data in the right way. And as long as we are cognizant of the consumer's privacy, I think we can personalize it even better, and we can provide more value to the consumer, which consumer hopefully will like.
Right. Thank you, Siddharth. So my next question is for Argo, Prasenjit, and Kanishk. I know all of them are in different sectors, handling different kinds of brands. But as marketers, I'd just like to know from you that what are some key performance metrics that you ensure to track when you undertake a data-driven marketing strategy? So Argo, maybe you can start, and Prasenjit and Kanishk can pitch in.
Sure. So if you see what key metrics, the key metrics basically remain the same, right? At the end of the day, I am going to be questioned on how many customers I got in at what price and what are they doing, right? So those metrics basically does not change. But what essentially changes is whenever you are doing a data-driven marketing, there should always be a demonstrable delta, right? Which is most important, right? So why? Because the KPIs always remain the same. What we are additionally now tracking is whenever you are doing data-driven marketing, right? What is the cost of ingesting this data? What is the cost of the analysis of the data and implementing the data? As Siddharth already mentioned, in a clean room, right? There is always a cost of implementing your first-party data and then maybe consuming third-party data, right? So so the KPIs are not only riding on what the whole the business or the overall marketing KPIs are, but also the demonstrable delta or a difference or improvement between what I have been currently doing or what I'm currently doing with one set of data. Is there any other set of enriched data available? And if I'm marketing using that set of data, is there an improvement in profitability? If there is improvement in quality of customers, is there an improvement in conversion numbers? That needs to be always measured, right? Because what happens if you don't have that demonstrable delta? What we as marketers might tend to do is go on an overkill with data, right? So not all data is effective, not all data needs to be measured, and not all data is useful. That is what we should understand. It is basically the data we need to pick up, the insights we need to pick up, and after we have picked up those insights, how do we effectively implement it? That's something that we look at. And here also Weber was already said, right, some of the campaigns work out and some of the campaigns don't. So feedback post data driven campaigns is, I think, the most important KPI, right? To take the feedback back to the top of the funnel where all our data marketing is originating, and keeping the feedback loop on. Only then we will be able to slowly have a demonstrable delta. I keep repeating myself, but that is what we are looking at any point of time. Am I doing better than I was doing yesterday? That is important, right? And why am I doing better than yesterday? The answer to that, those are the two main KPIs that I think matter the most in data-driven marketing. If I am, yes or no, by how much, and why am I doing better? Because until and unless I know why am I doing better, there is no other way forward. Yeah, thanks.
Prasenjit, would you like to add something to that?
Prasenjit, you're on mute.
Mute, I think.
Prasenjit, can you hear us? You're on mute.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Is this better? I'm so sorry. Hey, I think what I said was Argo actually summed it up wonderfully. That's exactly how we look at it. However, being a durable Argo coming from fintech and we being a tangible product company, our campaigns are primarily more driven in terms of driving more affinity towards the brand, more people coming and buying our products. Okay, so that's where we actually have put it into. What we do is we look into three things. One is repetition matrix, which is actually what we do is the equity and the power the brand carries in the market. We obviously go with the Tata brand, which is very strong for us and has a very strong salience. And we look at it as a very strong asset in terms of driving customer realization for us. This is measured primarily through conversation volumes that we see in all our campaigns, message playback and brand salience, consideration, organic chatter, and sentiment. That's how that's how we look at reputation metrics. The second thing that we look at is advocacy metrics. The brand consumers turning into the brand to become advocates of this particular brand. We try to measure this through again conversation tonality. So we go a little deeper into it. Number of likes, shares, comments with the brand communication, incremental reach, and NPS. So primarily we go a little more deeper there. And finally, what we do, the third level is what we talk about is sustainability matrix, keeping the consumers engaged for a longer, and a final conversion is what we look at, which is measured through engagement per user, fan growth velocity, sales and referrals. So this is how we actually chalk the measurement with respect to how we are performing versus the spends that we do in data in the data space.
Right. Thank you. Kanish, would you like to add something to that?
Sure. Although I think Argo's answer is quite comprehensive, just a couple of more points that I'll add. Firstly, I think finally marketing KPIs finally come down to bang for the buck. But one thing that we look at is short term versus long term as well. For example, a strategy to, let's say, improve my cost of acquisition or improve my sort of return on advertising spend in the short term is much more different if my long-term target is reasonably like a low growth versus high growth, right? So that is another metric that we keep into mind. For example, it's not only about how much business we do. It also metric that we track is how many new customers we're getting, or is it a more of the existing customers who are sort of buying again? So that becomes a key sort of KPI for us to measure and top. And second bit is about the understanding the funnel to the full depth of it, so that we know if anything changes, what is the exact reason for it? For example, has my cost of reaching the relevant audience changed? Is my marketing communication effectiveness gone down? Are some products not working well? And so the way we design it, we need to identify immediately what part of the funnel has broken. Is it the ad effectiveness, or is it the consumer feedback which is impacting in reviews? So everything gets covered if we are clear from a marketing funnel perspective that if a break happens, what is the main cause of that break? And as long as you're on top of that, we're able to sort of turn around very fast to be able to take quick decisions. So that's what metrics does for us. It just directs us in the right direction. Sorry, it points us in the right direction of what to be solved versus the 100 things that we're doing in the business.
Right. Thank you, Kanishk. So my next question is for Vaibhav and Kuldeep. Vaibhav, I'd like to know from you that, what are the challenges that you're currently facing with respect to utilizing data in your marketing efforts? Because we all know that there are certain barriers that come in the way of unlocking data's full potential. Vaibhav, you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a difficult one because I think it's always a work in progress state. But if you ask me, my number one challenge today would be bandwidth. I would want to do more in less. I don't know. Can anyone hear me? Everyone's picture
Yeah, we can
has.
hear you,
Can you hear
Vaibhav.
you?
Okay. Okay, awesome. So yeah, so I think I think from a data perspective, I think it's not like a problem of technology or any constraint. I think it's more to do us. I mean, every brand or every organization is on a journey, and in that journey, you try to you create infrastructure for capturing data and build intelligence for using that data. So I think it's a matter of time and expertise when we will have access to the intelligence side where we want to be. But again, that's always a work in progress because there is a better insight and you want to move there. So I don't know if that adds or answers your questions, but yeah.
Right. Kuldeep, anything to add to that?
So I pretty much agree to what Vaibhav said. There's no end to in terms of gathering data, right? There are multiple resources where we can gather data on from social media, internal tools, and it's important that we need to have a clear mindset in terms of what data we need to refer to in terms of building products or building customer journeys, or for that matter for our acquisition play as well. But the fact remains that apart from data, it's also important for be it fintechs or direct tangible brands, which Prasanjit mentioned, to build brands, build trust. For a fintech brand as well, it's important to build a brand which has a lot of trust and not only rely on a lot of data-driven acquisition play, because that's very short-lived. That's where your LTV plays a role, right, which Argo mentioned. So it goes hand in hand. Investing in brand is as important, and going by gut feeling to a lot many bigger products, which is worked in our sense as well. And I think relying on data and building more products or building more customer journeys is of equal importance.
You're on mute.
Sorry. So we're just left with two more questions, and then we'll just quickly wrap up. So if you could just take 1 minute to answer these. What are some key trends that all of you expect to transform the marketing landscape in the coming few years?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, sure.
So I think one key observation is, and I'm sure everyone has seen, is customers are becoming more and more immune to direct advertising over time. To just get noticed by customers, especially the most sought after premium customers, is becoming more and more difficult. Therefore, I think two trends that might come up: one, the investments in content and influencer marketing, I expect to really skyrocket, and also become much more data oriented and not just gut based like it is right now, that we want to invest for visibility, but we don't know whether there's direct business impact. I think that is going to change. And even the quality of that communication, be it through content marketing, because content now has to compete with, as in advertising content now has to compete with actual content, because customers want entertainment everywhere. And it's not okay to just get your message out there if it's not entertaining enough for the customer to remember or even pay attention. So I think that is going to be one key trend for sure. And second is more around the discovery through word of mouth. I think will become even more important. Even today, word of mouth is super important, but the way I think the reach, while marketing reach is increasing, the reach to very, very relevant audience is probably shrinking. There are enough people that we would know in our circle who cannot be reached through any regular marketing mediums anymore. So for that, word of mouth has to be super strong. And that means not just the referral programs or marketing programs. It means the entire customer experience with the brand has to be at a level that is worth talking about. So I think the entire organization needs to start behaving like a marketing organization to build an experience that people talk about. Otherwise, it's going to be a very tough journey to continue with only paid marketing.
Weber, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, 100% agree with Kanishk. I think the whole organization needs to understand that advocacy is are going to drive much more business than any other campaigns that we're going to incorporate. I think I would also look at, because of our ability to reach out to audiences in tier 2 and tier 3, and as a nation, we are seeing that there is a strong demand coming from tier 2, tier 3, and Kuldeep can add to this, that even at the rural areas this demand's getting further. So I think getting into vernacular content is going to be next big and very important trait, because it just allows as marketers to reach out to the right audience and actually make it more relevant to them, rather than reaching out to them in the English or Hindi that we normally are more accustomed to. So that is something that I think is going to be the next big frontier when it comes to key trends. Of course, I mean, there are other trends, and I think more folks will cover that.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming on board for this discussion. It was lovely.
Yeah.
And I hope that I can host you sometime again in the coming future as well.